In order to understand the open circulatory system, we can compare it to a closed circulatory system, because that's something we may be more familiar with. So a closed circulatory system is observed in humans. Now, what does that mean? Well, when we think about blood, blood is our fluid medium that is transporting gases and nutrients throughout the body. But in humans, our blood is enclosed within blood vessels, whether that is arteries, veins, or capillaries. But in an open circulatory system, the key difference is that the fluid medium that is carrying those nutrients and gases is not enclosed within a blood vessel. So in a closed circulatory system, your fluid is enclosed within a blood vessel, but in an open circulatory system, your fluid is not enclosed within a blood vessel. So instead of having blood or interstitial fluid, organisms that have an open circulatory system instead have another different fluid that is called hemolymph. Now, hemolymph is actually a fluid that has characteristics of both blood and interstitial fluid, and it is found in invertebrates with an open circulatory system. Now, as I mentioned, the fluid medium, which in this case is hemolymph, in an open circulatory system is not bound within blood vessels. Instead, it is found in open space. Now, what is that open space called? That open space is called Hemoseal. And we can actually break down this word and understand what it means. Seal, this suffix over here, means cavity. So the hemoseal is essentially the body cavity that holds the hemolymph. And that hemolymph will bathe all the cells and organelles within the hemoseal so that they can get the nutrients that they need. Now, if we take a look at this diagram, we can more in depth understand how an open circulatory system works within invertebrates. Now, this is a diagram of an insect and a bee specifically, and it has these tubular hearts with these openings in the middle. Now, these tubular hearts will pump blood all the way throughout over here, and then the blood will be pumped out into the cavity, which is the hemoseal. It's pumped out through this dorsal blood vessel, which we can compare to as an aorta. In humans, we have an aorta that pumps blood, oxygenated blood, all throughout the body. And in this case, our dorsal blood vessel is kind of like a dorsal aorta. Now, at the end, we have a posterior heart. So we have these tubular hearts pumping blood all the way through, and then we're in the hemoseal. Now, you may be wondering, how does the hemolymph in the hemoseal get back into these ostia? Because we don't have any blood vessels that directly take the hemolymph back into there. So to answer this question, hemolymph can re-enter the hearts through the ostia via locomotion and through muscular contractions within the invertebrate into the ostia. Once it's back in, travels all the way around and gets back out. Now, the second question you may be wondering is that once the hemolymph is in the hemoseal and it has dropped off the nutrients and possibly gases that are needed, how does our hemolymph get reoxygenated? Now, that's actually a very interesting question, because the answer is not quite straightforward, because when we think about invertebrate circulation and when we think about oxygen transportation, hemolymph is not a very good transporter of oxygen. Because within hemolymph, we have a compound called hemocyanin, which is a copper-based oxygen transporter, but it's not a very good transporter. So instead, our invertebrate relies on the tracheal system, in which it has spiracles, which essentially is small holes in the exoskeleton, and these small holes allow for air to enter the tracheal system, which essentially means that spiracles, which are the holes, allow air to enter into the trachea. The trachea branches off into tracheoles, and those tracheoles will pass air, oxygen, or export carbon dioxide to the invertebrate. So our blood, or our hemolymph in an open circulatory system, is not efficient at gas transportation, and we have this tracheal system instead. But to a certain degree, our hemolymph can be oxygenated because we do have that hemocyanin. And how does our hemolymph get oxygenated? Well, it's the same way as the tracheal system. The spiracles allow air to enter, it allows oxygen to enter, and through that way, our hemolymph can get oxygenated, and our hemocyanin can carry oxygen to a certain degree. Now, the last thing to mention is that which organisms will exhibit an open circulatory system. Well, of course, we are going to have our arthropods. That includes our bee, just like in the diagram above. It includes our mollusks, for example, the snails. And it also includes echinodermata, for example, the starfish. And that is essentially the open circulatory system. It is a system in which the fluid that carries the nutrients and gases are not enclosed by blood vessels. And instead of having blood or interstitial fluid, we have hemolymph, which is found in the hemoseal.